Hey, everybody. It's Heather.
It's Hope.
And it's Heidi, welcoming you to another episode of Finding Our Way Through. For those of you who have listened before, you know it's a podcast designed to help navigate the inevitable complexities of life. So, wherever you are, whether you've joined us before or you're joining us for the first time, and whatever it is you're trying to find your way through, we're so glad that you found your way here to this podcast. We'd also love for those listening to like us and follow us on our YouTube channel or on our Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok pages as well. So, for those listening, you know that the podcast is often dealing with some pretty serious topics. Today, we wanted to do something a little less serious. And so, we're actually going to be talking about how the three of us are finding our way through this podcast, learning how to podcast, talking about those kinds of things. But before we get started, I want to say happy birthday, ladies.
Happy birthday, Hyde. Happy birthday, Heather.
Happy birthday to us.
I
Happy
know.
birthday
Birthday
us.
to us. Yes, it's a little
Happy
late. I
birthday.
know our
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday to us.
Yeah.
Let's finish it.
Yeah, we just did. All
Yeah.
right.
I say we're 55 and still alive.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We
God.
just celebrated our 55th birthday a couple days ago. Yeah, thank God for another day, right?
Yes, exactly.
Seriously.
So blessed.
What'd y'all do? Did you guys do anything fun for your birthday?
Yeah, I did. I was out in the Seattle area and was there for a big swim meet. It was the Pac-12 championships. And to our listeners out there, the Pac-12 is a sports conference. It is going away. A lot of the teams in the Pac-12 are going to other conferences. And so it was the final Pac-12 swim championships. And while we were out there, my husband must have told all of the parents of the kids on the team that it was my birthday, because all day long people kept saying happy birthday, and I'm not a huge birthday person. So I kept saying, like, wow, how does so and so know it's my birthday? This is so weird. Everybody seems to know that it's my birthday. And unbeknownst to me, he had sent an email to all the parents letting them know that it was my birthday and that he wanted to throw a little impromptu birthday celebration. And so it was so funny. Right before we were going down to the lobby of the hotel where the cake was, he was like, okay. He's like, I have to spill the beans here. I need to tell you, everybody's, going down to the lobby to celebrate your birthday. And I was like, wow, okay, light bulb went off. I'm like, all right, well, that's how everybody knows that it's my birthday. But honestly, it was very sweet and very thoughtful. But just being out there and watching my son, who is a swimmer, just watching him and being able to be out there to be at that swim meet was just a great birthday gift. So a lot of fun. What about you, ladies? What did you do?
Well, that's so funny because the day of our birthday, I knew that my son was going to be playing in a state hockey quarterfinal. So we knew that we were going to be in a hockey rink late that night in Massachusetts. And it's funny because my son had previously asked me what I wanted, for my birthday as a gift. And I was like, oh, well, the best gift would be if you guys won the state quarterfinal game. So I got my wish because they won the game, and they're going to be playing in the semifinal upcoming. But separately, my daughter goes to school, as you guys know. She goes to college in Los Angeles, and I wanted to wait to actually celebrate my birthday with her. And so she's home, and we actually had a really nice dinner last night. And we opened some gifts and had a cake and all that good stuff. So it was great. And Hope, to your point, like, you're not a big birthday person. I'm not a big birthday person either. So it was perfect the way we celebrated last night. Hyde, what about you? How'd you celebrate? Or how were you celebrated?
I love that you guys got a chance to be with your kids. Mine don't live in the town that I live in. So harder to get to celebrate because they are both graduated, and my daughter, of course, has been married for almost a year, which is hard to imagine and believe. But yeah, I actually didn't do a heck of a lot to celebrate. My husband and I just went to dinner at my favorite restaurant in Tallahassee. And I was so looking forward to this one dish that they make like all day. I was like, oh, it's going to be so good. I can't wait to order this particular dish. And then when I got there, they didn't have it on the menu anymore.
Oh no.
What was the
Yeah.
dish?
That's a big bummer.
It's a seafood chiapino that they make. So it has like lobster tail, and it has like scallops and crab and shrimp. And it's so good. And it's
Sounds yummy.
so sad that they don't make it
And you
anymore
were
because,
so disappointed, I bet.
yeah, I had to sort of, figure out what else to order because, when you get so set on one particular thing and they don't have it, you're like, oh,
I
anyway,
know.
so it was
I've
nice.
been waiting for this all week. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a big bummer.
Yeah. I pivoted. I found something on the menu that I enjoyed. So that was
Good.
good. And then, yesterday I had a little mini spa day for myself. So that's the way
Oh,
that I
yay.
celebrated. Little
Love
Little
that.
self-care,
pampering. That's awesome.
little pampering. So, well, guys, I'm so glad. It sounds like you really enjoyed some time with your family for your birthday. So that's great. Happy B-Day again.
Thank you.
All right.
Happy birthday,
So
ladies.
Yes, most
question,
definitely.
okay? As we talk about the podcast, sort of finding our way through the podcast, do you guys want to speak to what it's been like for you so far since we've started this? I guess, how many episodes have we done? We've done a total
Well,
of
yeah. So let's see. We did episode 1, part 2 parts. So that's 2, and then episode 2. And then our third episode was 2 parts, and then so 6 so far. This will be
6
our
so far.
7th,
Plus an
Okay.
introduction.
plus the little intro.
Yeah, the little intro. So what's it been like for you guys so far? Tell me about the experience.
Well, it's been a fun experience. I've had a lot of fun just connecting with the two of you and talking about things that I think we all believe are pretty important. So it's been fun. I think the one thing is, in order to get it up and running, just like everything in life, there's learning that needed to be done. And so, just a little bit of research around what podcasting platform would be the best given our circumstance, given the fact that the three of us live in different locations and we're recording remotely. And so feel really good about, ultimately the platform that we selected, because there are some out there that just allow you to record and then you have to actually move it to a different platform to edit. But the one that we found is great because it allows you to record and edit and actually just makes publishing super easy. And then, of course, there was a little bit of okay, well, how do you then take this audio file and load it to
Yeah.
Spotify, and how do you load it to Apple, and what's an RSS feed, and how do you download the video and put it up on YouTube, and so that just little things along the way that needed to be learned. But I think now that it is learned, it's becoming a little bit more routinized, which has been really nice. So outside of some of sort of, I would say not really the technical challenges, because we have some glitches when we're recording,
Yeah.
and we end up re-recording, but we've also had a lot of very funny outbursts and lots of laughs, as we've said funny things or made funny faces at each other. So it's been fun and funny, and very educational. That is what I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like, there's been a big learning curve for you on the podcast platform side. And I know Heather and I are so thankful and so grateful for the work that you've done to, get that all set up for sure.
It's been fun.
Yeah, and I think I would say that, none of us are, quote, tech experts. So it's definitely been a learning curve in terms of finding the right software. And, again, what you just said. Kudos to Hope, because she's really done, a ton of the heavy lifting on finding the right software to use, and then really uploading, the video and the audio to the different podcasting platforms. So thanks so much for that, Hope. And then, there's also been a learning curve for all three of us as it relates to, social media, right? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, et cetera. And I think that will be a continued learning curve. So I guess part of all of our personal growth and the growth of the podcast. And then I would just say, in general, for me, the podcast has been, so much fun. It is so much fun connecting with two amazing women in the way that we're connecting. It is so amazing that we are able to use our collective life experience in a way that, hopefully gives back to other people, and the whole intent of the podcast, Had, I believe, was your idea, in that, there are so many people who feel alone in this world, and using this platform to have people connect and make them feel like they're not alone. I think it's just been such an amazing journey for me so far, and filled with learning, and filled with glitches, and filled with so many funny and shared memories. So what's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work,
Yes.
to just work through like selection of topics, and just get that ready for discussion between the three of us. But outside of that, I think it's been kind of fun to figure out the flow of the podcast and sort of how we work together as as triplets. Trying to kind of figure out how to be less scripted and to feel like a little more comfortable doing something that we've never done before. So I think we're works in progress for sure, but it's just been really fun for me to look forward to connecting to you guys on a weekly basis, which really isn't something that we've done historically over the past several decades. I mean, we talk to each other, but having, I think, that set time, that set date to do the recordings for the podcast have just been, it's filled my heart with a lot of joy and anticipation of connecting with you guys. So that's what I would say about what the podcast has been like for me so far.
And Heidi, I also just want to say too that we would be so remiss if we didn't recognize you and everything that you have done to make this podcast happen, because your clinical social work background is the reason why we have topics, why we're structured, and why we can hopefully offer substantive advice to our listening community. So thank you so much for everything you've done.
Yes, clapping for Heidi. I mean, you've done so
Thanks.
much
Clapping
work,
for both of you,
and really like so much research, to make sure that what we're putting out there by way of content is relevant and meaningful, and well researched. So thank you so much for doing all of that.
Thank you
Well,
for letting me come along for the ride, ladies.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
An integral
research,
part of the
but
ride.
it's
What a
it's
ride
it's
it's been.
experience too. It's just experience. It's what I have been honored to learn sitting across from people day in and day out who are going through a bunch of the things that we talk about on the podcast. So, I mean, it's just such an incredible privilege to be a part of, a tiny bit of my clients' stories, but those are some of the stories that have, informed the podcast. So shout out to those people who I have great opportunity to work with and get to be a part of their healing process.
I have a question for the two of you. How does it feel, right? This is the first time we've done anything like this. How does it feel kind of putting yourselves out there and talking about, your life experiences?
Hi.
I think it feels good. I'm sort of, if you know me, I'm pretty much an open book. I basically for those people who have earned the right to hear my story, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brene Brown, but she's done a lot of work on shame and empathy and vulnerability. And one of the things that she says is, those people, those safe others, are people that have earned the right to hear your story. And so, yeah, for those people in my life that have earned the right to hear my story, I really am an open book. I share pretty much, what my struggles are. I share, what my victories are, and all those things. So, for me, it's been, it's been good. I've enjoyed the opportunity to take what I have had the opportunity to learn and experience over, the years, and give it back. Like, there's a parable in the Bible of the talents, and it's this idea that one person was given 5 talents, one was given 3, and one was given 1. And the people with the 5 talents and the 3 talents all, invested their talent, and, there was a return on the investment. But this person with the 1 talent actually buried the talent and didn't use it. And, it turns out that that wasn't something that was like really honoring or glorifying to God, with what we've been gifted, the skill sets that we have in whatever profession that we are finding ourselves a part of. The expectation is really to use what's been given. And so I think part of this podcast really for me is the opportunity to do that, to take whatever talents I've been given, and try to find a return on the investment. So that's what I
Yeah,
would say.
I love that. I really love that. That was so well said, Heidi. Heather, what about you? How's it been for you?
And first, I'd thanks because that was incredibly well said. And I think for me, it's really the same. I'm pretty much an open book in terms of talking about, sort of anything related to my life. Some people may at some points call me a little bit, blunt, because I have no problem asking questions. I like to ask questions of other people. So I feel like, they're always able to ask those same questions of me. And, for sure, I think, we're all being very honest, we're all being very vulnerable. And, putting yourself out that way can be a little bit scary, but I think I'm just at a time in my life and sort of an age in my life where, I hate to say this because it's no disrespect to anybody listening, or, anybody that I know, but it's sort of like, I'm not afraid to be who I am, and, just kind of put myself out there. And like I said, I think you get to an age where it's sort of like, I'm not sure if it's like 50 when people say like, oh, you hit the F at 50s and you don't really care what anybody thinks about you. But I do think that, we've collectively all had a lot of life experience, and we've been in a lot of different situations in life where we feel like what we have to share can actually help somebody else. So it's been so fun and honestly empowering. How about you, Hope?
Yeah. Yeah, Heather, thanks for sharing that. I would say, one of the words that you mentioned, vulnerable. So I don't necessarily um, I don't necessarily worry about what anybody thinks of me, but definitely putting myself out there, it does make me feel somewhat vulnerable. But it's been a really good experience for me because I think if talking about, some of our experiences collectively, mine, Heidi's, yours, I think if talking about some of our collective experiences can help anyone in our listening community feel connected and feel like they are not the only ones that have gone through grief or loss or heartbreak. Um, if
Exactly.
if there's any way for us to take what we've learned, and have that have a positive impact, have that have a positive impact on others, I think that's what makes me, feel, more courageous in sharing everything that I have been sharing in conjunction with the two of you. So it's been a very good experience that way. But honestly, somewhat a little bit scary. But getting through it.
Yeah. And, there's always going to be people out there who, I think Taylor Swift says, like, the haters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Haters gonna hate.
Not that we
Hate,
have
hate, hate, hate.
any kind of claim to celebrity, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, people, it's easy for people to give an opinion or give feedback, anonymously. So, you just do what you do, and you hope that it it does what you have purposed it to do. So
Hope that
hopefully,
Right.
you hope that it resonates with the folks that we're trying to reach and kind of building this community so that folks don't feel like there's nobody else out there that's gone through what they've gone through.
yeah. Yeah, I think what you guys say is, very, very true for you. So thanks for sharing all that stuff. All right. Well, here's a question. So, we talk about the fact that we've laughed a lot as we've been trying to find our way through the podcast, right? And I mean, so much so that, some of the like the re-recordings, Hope, that you referred to at the beginning of the podcast, it's
Yeah.
because we're laughing so hard and
Oh God, yeah.
we can't sort of control ourselves because we're talking about something and then we start saying, oh my gosh, do you remember this story? So like, yeah, in that sense, it's given us the opportunity to like listen again to some of these things that, we remember, but we don't often like talk about them. They're not like the stories that we just kind of like keep alive every time we are with each other. So what I was kind of wondering is, as we've been, sort of finding our way through the podcast, I was wondering if you guys wanted to share any funny stories about things that, we're recollecting as we think about our past.
Yeah, Heather, you can go first, but I just wanted to say the thing that I think is super funny, Heidi, about what you just said is not what you said, but just the image that came to mind is that when we are talking and we sort of sidetrack and start talking about different stories that we remember, like I'll remember it one way and Heather may remember it another way, and then you'll either say, "Oh, I remember it the way Hope remembered it," or "I remember it the way Heather remembered it." So I just think it's funny that even though we're recollecting
The same
stories,
experience.
Yeah.
the same experience from the past, we still have different perspectives on what really happened. So I just wanted to put that out there because one of the stories that Heather may share might be remembered differently by me or by you. So it's just been funny.
Yeah, and vice versa, for sure. Because it's been a long time since we had quote childhood memories.
Yes.
But and I have to apologize sort of upfront too, because to our listeners, I mean, I tend to crack up a lot, and so Heidi and Hope are forced to hit stop on the record button and start over again. So
At some point, I'll release. The three of us will release a little reel of bloopers. They're pretty hilarious.
yes, and they typically start with me with uncontrollable laughter. So I do apologize for that. So, but as we talk about some of the funny memories, I think there are certain memories that just really stand out in our minds, and the one for me is obviously. So to our listening community, we grew up in a coastal town in Massachusetts, and again there were 10 children in our family and two parents. So 12 people lived in a small house. And this small house was actually, it abutted a graveyard. And, so as a kid, I mean, it almost looked like we lived in the graveyard.
And it
And
was fun, right? I mean, the
oh
memories
my
of
gosh, it
that
was the
graveyard, and
best playground ever.
it
And
sounds
they,
kind of creepy, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, for like having lived so close to it, there we spent so much time playing hide and seek up there. Like, I mean, talk about great hiding spots, right?
Hide and seek, sardines, you know, ghost in the graveyard,
yeah,
kind of in the
kickball.
dark at times. It was a little bit terrifying,
Yeah.
but really fun.
You remember
You
the Red
didn't want
Ant
to be the
Trail?
last person. Yeah, the red ant trail. Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
want to explain what that was?
The red ant trail, it's so funny. I think it was at the back of the graveyard and it was supposedly riddled with red ants. I think we thought if we went down the red ant trail, we were going to, get
Be like
attacked
consumed.
by killer red ants.
Yeah.
In reality, I don't know that I ever saw a red ant on the
Yeah,
red
no.
ant trail.
No, there
Um,
definitely were red ants down there,
were
but
there?
yeah,
But I mean, it's not even there anymore today, right, Heather? Like
right. It's
I
been
think
developed. The whole
it's been
area has been
developed and it's
developed.
gone.
But you guys remember as kids, there was like a tombstone down there. at the backside
Yes.
of the trail.
A big
And
mound,
then
yeah.
and then it was all wooded. So
Right.
it was terrifying because
It was
you're like,
scary.
if we go down the red ant trail, we're going to be consumed by red ants and or,
We're
there was
never
probably
coming back
someone
from the
lurking
red
in
ant
the
trail.
That's right.
forest that was going to steal us and take us away.
The dead
Um,
body in the crypt is going to come back to life.
Exactly. I mean, it's
Resurrected.
just so funny how little kids think. But I mean, having grown up there, it was such an amazing experience because the thing that I always reflect on today is that it's one of the oldest graveyards in the actual country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And if anybody were to visit, the gravestones, it's got General John Glover's gravestone, and it's filled with Revolutionary War heroes and stuff. So anyway, we digress a little bit, but so our house was basically inside of the graveyard. The graveyard was our backyard, and on the back side of that graveyard was a big pond called Red's Pond. And back then, it did seem like the ponds were frozen pretty much year round.
Mhm.
Today that doesn't happen. We're lucky to get, one weekend of frozen ice. But back then, we spent a lot of time at Red's Pond. And so the
Yep.
one memory that really sticks out to me in my mind is, we were on the pond skating one afternoon, and it was the three of us. It was our older sister, Faith, and, our dear friend and next door neighbor, Heather M, because she had the last name beginning with M. So she was Heather M and I was Heather S at the time. And that's how we were always referred to. Was it Heather M or
That's right.
Heather S? So Heather M was with us. And, so we're all skating on the pond, having a grand old time. And it just happened to be a time when, it coincided with us learning all these different swear words or curse words. Do you guys remember this? Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were learning all of these curse words at the time, and we knew that, certainly if we swore at home, we would literally have our mouths washed out with soap. I mean, it was something that we weren't going to be able to say at home. So we were like, we're on the pond, we have all this freedom. So inevitably, we all, of course, too, thought that we were like famous Olympic figure skaters, and
Yeah.
sort
Want
of
to be
in
famous Olympic skaters, right?
100%.
Exactly.
And so at the time, those figure skaters were people like Peggy Fleming and Dorothy Hamill. And so our iteration of the Olympics, we all chose figure skaters to be named after.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that, Peggy Fleming turned into Peggy effing. That
With the new
Dor-
curse word that we had learned.
Exactly. Right. I can't really say the curse word, but I think our listening community gets what that word was. And the funniest thing is
a 4-letter word that starts with an F and ends with a K.
yeah,
Yes.
ends with a CK. And it's so funny because like every figure skater was a derivative of that one word. So it's like Peggy Fleming was Peggy effing, right? Jojo Starbuck was Jojo Star F. Ty Babylonia was Ty Effalonia. Linda Fradiani was Linda Effiani. It's like how many times could we use that curse word? And then of course Dorothy Hamill was D-bag Hamill. And we were all some iteration of that. Skating around Red's Pond thinking we were just the coolest, like, I don't know, 11 or 12-year-olds ever because, right, we had the freedom to skate and,
And
do
curse.
twists and turns on our figure skates by calling each other, D-bag Hamill. Look at her go. Look at Peggy effing.
It's
Just the best. I mean, to this
so
day, I've told
funny.
my kids that story so many times.
I'm
It was
crying.
like a real act of rebellion, because we knew
Oh, 100%.
we knew that
Knew we
Duchess
would-
wasn't going to fly
Couldn't
anywhere.
use those words.
Near
And
the
most of the
pond,
time
so-
too, like if you guys remember back then, like I remember walking to school, and like hearing words or hearing swear words or like, words that you knew that weren't like appropriate words, but you didn't really know like what it meant,
Yeah.
or you didn't know, there's a lot of misinformation back then, but there was certainly no misinformation about this one 4-letter word that began with an F and ended with a CK.
Right. So funny. That's so
That's
great, Heather.
hysterical. Oh my gosh.
Such a funny story. Absolutely. 100%. Could never forget that.
No, just hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
really
I
funny.
remember, and I know that the thing about the podcast that's been so fun is just like, reminiscing about these things. And every time you tell that story, it just makes me laugh harder, I think, every time I hear it. But anyway, so do you remember this one? Okay, so this must have been, I had come back from the Peace Corps and was working a couple of jobs. I think I was working with this organization that helped people with developmental disabilities live independently. So it was like what I did,
Absolutely.
I don't know, 20, 25 hours a week. And then I was nannying. And this was all before I was getting married. So I was getting married. Let's see, I came back in like October of 92, was getting married in August of 93. And so, Hope, you, I think, were still in Japan, or you had come back from Japan and you had moved to San Francisco. I can't really remember like how our timelines, kind of coincided, if they
Yeah,
did or didn't.
I would have moved to San Francisco in like January of 93.
Okay. All right. So maybe you were around, but this is just a memory I have of Heather and I. So you guys remember we were pretty obsessive with this exercise class we would, go to. It was called Dance Energy. So like,
Shout out to Dance Energy.
yeah, shout out to
Thank
Dance
you,
Energy.
Joyce.
Yes,
Joyce and
exactly.
Beth.
Like choreographed, kind of like aerobics class. And
We
we
were
go like
obsessed.
2 or 3 classes a day. But I remember, so it was like the winter time, and Hope, probably it was after you moved to San Francisco. But Heather and I came back from Dance Energy, right? And we were living in the house that we grew up in. Our mother had died. I think we've talked about that in another podcast, in 1991. So this is about a year and a half after she's passed away. Heather's working in Boston. I have my two, kind of part-time jobs, trying to save money for the wedding. And so Heather and I come back from an exercise class, and literally we're sitting in her car. It's the winter time. It's like freezing cold outside. And
Cranking
we're
the
like,
heat.
we were cranking the heat in her car because we couldn't really afford to pay for too much heat in our
The
in the
house.
energy bill.
house.
The energy, we were super focused on like how much the bill was going to be. So we were trying to be like as wise as we could. We're like, all right, let's get as warm as we possibly can in this car before we have to go inside and
And
like,
conserve.
yeah, and
Conserve energy.
conserve energy. So we would do that, and then we would take our winter coats, right? Like we went inside the house, and with our winter coats, I don't know if you remember these coats, but like they were like big winter parkas with like fur collars,
Hoods.
like
Yeah.
fur hoods. And so we would like literally put on the coat, and then we'd like zip it all the way up. So like, you couldn't see our chin, and then we'd pull the hood up over our head, and as a way to just stay warm inside the house, because we didn't want to spend money on putting the heat up. And then the funny thing is like Heather and I would sit there and like have dinner and watch TV with like
On the couch with our coats on.
with our winter coats on. And then this is the funniest part. Our older brother Mark, like I said, he lived in an apartment building not too far from where our house was. So, and he was single at the time, so he would come up to like just visit with Heather and
Hang
I.
out with us.
And literally you'd see him sitting in his chair with his winter jacket on,
And his
like
hat.
zipped up all the way to his collar, and his hat on. And the three of us were just like sitting there thinking that was like totally like this normal, sort of situation. And it's just so funny to think back on that story. I mean, I just laugh, Heather, every time I think about just you and I like huddling together in the car, like saying, "Oh my gosh, it's so hot. It's so warm in here. Like
It
I
feels
don't
so
want to go
good.
inside."
Let me get warm before I know I'm going to be freezing.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
remember too, had the showers too. We would take like 2-minute showers because we didn't want to spend the money heating the water.
Yes.
Hot water bills and
Like
heating
as
bills.
fast as you could shower in
I
and
know.
out.
We were
I don't
trying to
know.
be.
I don't know what the timing would have been, but I do remember coming home from San Francisco. I just remember being in the house, and the two of you were like, I just remember walking in the house. Maybe Mark had picked me up at the airport. And I remember walking in the house, and the two of you were sitting in your jackets on the couch watching TV. And I was like, it's freezing. cold in here. What is going on?
Yeah, Heather, she was trying to help. She's trying to figure out our odd behavior. Like,
The odd behavior. So
It's just
funny.
so
That's
funny to think
hilarious.
about hope. But I remember actually, you had definitely come home from Japan because you had one of the women that you had met in Japan
Oh, Maki,
come
that's right.
visit, and I
Yes.
remember her coming into the house too,
Did we
and
give her a jacket to put on so she wouldn't freeze? Because she was tiny.
we
Do you remember?
probably said you might want to keep your jacket on because it's really
Yeah.
cold in here. But I remember Heidi and I meeting
We
her,
don't have the
and you
money
were
to
with
pay for the
her.
heat.
You were with her, and I remember we met her, and Heidi and I were sitting there with like these absolute parkas, on.
With the fur
Yeah, I mean,
zipped all the way up.
like it was totally normal, nothing out of the ordinary here.
Exactly. That is so funny. That's
we weren't
so
doing a lot of
great.
entertaining at the time, I don't think.
No, definitely
Oh my
not.
gosh, that's so
Come to
funny.
our
What a
party,
great
but bring
story.
your coat and your hat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Gosh,
so
so
cute.
funny.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Um, yeah, I think we were talking to the other day. Do you guys remember the how so as Heather mentioned, right, to our listening community, we grew up in this little seaside hamlet in New England, just this beautiful little community, but surrounded by lots of water, the Atlantic Ocean. And we happened to really want to see the movie Jaws, which I don't remember what year it came out, but I remember we were pretty young and what were you going to say, something, Heather?
I was just going to say, I think it was like 1976 or 1977 or something. So we were
Yeah,
really
so
young.
we
Yeah.
were young.
6 or
And
7 or
we were
something.
like dying to see the movie Jaws. And I just remember Dad not being too, psyched about the fact that we wanted to see a movie about a killer shark, given the fact that we, given the
Lived on
fact
the
that we
Atlantic Ocean
lived
in a
on the
coastal
Atlantic
town.
Ocean in a coastal town. Exactly.
Yeah.
The perfect spot for a possible shark attack. So,
Well, also, that was supposed to take place in Cape Cod, which wasn't too far from us.
right, exactly. And so I think we like begged and pleaded, and I do remember that he agreed to let us see the movie. I remember him coming to the movie theater with us, and the whole time, I mean, it's pretty funny to look back on now, but the whole time we were watching the movie, we were pretty terrified because for a young kid watching, I think like this, major epic motion picture about a killer shark was pretty terrifying. Now take that, and on the heels of the next morning,
Here's the
you know,
trauma.
here's the trauma. Here's 100% the trauma. The next morning, the three of us had a swim test at a place called Crocker Park, which was,
Yeah, describe that.
well, it's a park in the middle of our hometown, which is Marblehead, Massachusetts. It's a really pretty park that looks out over the harbor, but it's a park that has an incline and a very steep rock ledge that drops down into the harbor. And so there are stairs to get down there, and there's a dock, right? So our swim lessons were off a dock. It wasn't like we were swimming in a pool. It wasn't like we were swimming off of a beach.
Yeah, it was
We were
Marblehead, like public swimming lessons.
It was Marblehead public swimming lessons, and we were swimming literally in the harbor near boats that were motoring by, sailboats.
Sailboats.
Not the safest environment, honestly. But it was a dock in the middle of the harbor. And so, our swim test, we were supposed to swim underwater from one side of the dock to the other. We were supposed to swim out to, a boat that wasn't too far from the dock, and show different strokes and things. But I remember on the day after this movie, everybody at the swim lesson, including the three of us, were so afraid to go into the water because of the impending shark attack. And I'll never, ever forget. So, we at times used kickboards. And I remember a couple of the kickboards were floating away from the dock and over closer to the rock ledge. And everybody was sort of panicking, and they were like, someone has to go in and get the kickboards. We're losing the kickboards. And no one would go
do
in the
it.
water. And here comes my sheer terror. I got pushed in the water, and being in the water, thinking that I was going to be pulled under by a shark. Everybody's like, swim, you're in the water, just go get them. You guys, the entire time I was swimming over to the rock ledge,
You're
I was like,
terrified.
dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun
dun, dun,
dun
dun,
dun dun
dun,
dun
dun,
dun
dun.
dun dun dun.
Yeah,
I
like
thought
the
I was going
shark
to
is
be pulled
lurking underneath
pulled
the dock
under. Oh my
waiting.
gosh, do you remember that? Do you remember having the swim lesson the day after we saw Jaws?
Oh my! I still wake up in cold sweats about it. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Highly
it was
traumatic event for an 8
it
or 9-year-old.
it like, honestly, it was, like, one of the times in my life where I can completely remember having, like, a freeze response,
Fear.
like, just I mean, one of the things you had to do for that swimming test, I don't know if you guys remember, was just jump off the high dive, like, that's all you had to do. Like,
Which is so
no
funny, Hyde, I need to interrupt because the high dive that park, it's a public swimming area, and there used to be a low dive and a high dive, and it
And
is
it's tidal.
so shallow. I
Yep.
cannot even
Yeah.
believe that there was a high dive there when we were kids, but
Yep.
it's long gone. But anyway, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so all you had to do is just jump off the high dive, like, no fancy dive off the high dive or, like, front flip off the high like, nothing, just jump. And I literally just, like, sat up there. I don't even know how long I was up there. It felt like, a lifetime because I was just terrified that if, like, jumped in off the high dive, like, the shark was just, like, just waiting with, like, his mouth wide open to, like,
Wide
just
open.
grab me. Yeah. Yes.
It's so funny to think back on that because I know that it was such a traumatic, like, just watching that movie, it was traumatic for me, and when my kids were like, "Can we see Jaws?" I was like, "No, I don't want you to be afraid to swim in the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean. Like, no, you can't see it." And I think I didn't let them see that movie until they were, I think, both in high school, and they watched that movie and they were laughing so hysterically, not at the movie, at me. They were like, "This is the funniest movie. It's like a blow up shark. It's
They
so
thought it was
not
so fake.
it's so not scary. You can tell it's a mechanical shark." And I just started laughing. I was like, "I don't know why I wouldn't let you both see that because I think I was just so traumatized by that whole experience." It was
But you know
so
what's so
funny.
funny? Hope that's like such a element of time because at the time that Jaws came out, it was like state of the art technology, you know? And like
Yes.
that opening scene in that movie for any of our listening community who have not seen Jaws, it is one of the all-time classic movies that I probably have seen. I am not kidding you, at least 20 times from start to finish. Um, but back then it was
Wow.
so terrifying because it was state of the art technology. I mean, who had ever seen a movie about a killer shark?
Yeah,
We
so
hadn't.
funny.
Yeah.
And we
Hope it's
had to swim because we had to pass the test. The swim teacher was giving nobody any leeway. She was like, get in the water and earn your badge.
Exactly. It was
yeah,
just
it
I just oh, so funny.
It makes me think of similarly, like, I had the same experience with, like, Friday the 13th,
Oh my
like
Yes.
all of
gosh.
all of the Jason
Jason in the
movies.
Woods.
Yeah.
And, my kids
Camp
for,
Crystal Lake.
years, like, they were like, can we watch that? And I'm like, absolutely not. It is like the most terrifying movie. And so literally on, like, one Friday the 13th, I think maybe like 5 years ago, they sat down and watched it with me and were literally like laughing the whole time because they're like, "Mom, this is like the fakest movie ever. Like, how did you think that this was scary?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like it when I watched it at the time that I watched it, at the age that I watched it, it was like, you know, Jason is, gonna come kill and maim me." So anyway, it just kind of speaks to that, when you're younger, you have this idea about what the experience is like. And then when you get older, it's like, oh my gosh, like, for how long did I think that this was like the most terrifying movie I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah, like, "Oh my gosh, why was I ever so terrified? Like, how was this so scary to me?"
Yeah,
So funny.
But it's all part of your development
It
too, right?
is,
I mean,
absolutely.
and everything is relevant.
Yeah.
Um,
yes.
I will say though, I mean, even with the Jaws thing, even though like you watch it and it's like so fake, it's like this big mechanical shark. I mean, when I'm like paddleboarding sometimes, I'm like terrified. Like, I'm worried that there's going to be like,
Something
a
below
shark.
you.
So I'll always be like, Jaws ruined it for me. Like, I do not love
Yeah.
swimming the way that I used to before I saw that movie. And that was like, what, 40 years ago or something. So
Yeah,
well, yeah,
if
and I
not
think
more.
today too. I mean, not to completely digress, but when we were kids, we were so terrified because we saw the movie, but there was no real reason to be, too terrified because there were no great white sharks here. But
Now there
now
are.
because of global warming, there actually are sharks in Massachusetts Bay.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots of seals, lots of sharks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
they
funny.
follow the food.
Well, you guys, those stories are so classic. And thanks again for just sharing them and, creating that space just to completely laugh about them over and over and again. Um, didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about sort of like finding your way through the podcast before we get ready to end for today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just gonna so far it's been, a great learning experience. I think finding our way through is just gonna be some trial and error and hopefully a lot of laughs along the way.
Yeah, and I would say the exact same thing. I mean, I think just because it's new to us, it's going to be trial and error. But again, the platform in and of itself, the ability to, be together, even though we're in different geographic locations, all at the same time, to share life experience. I mean, it's truly been, just an amazing experience.
What
Yeah.
about you, Hyde?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I feel similarly. I am looking forward to just continuing to create these episodes and just continue to enjoy the time that we get to spend together doing the episodes, and hope that in doing so there are just a lot of people who we can reach and offer encouragement and support to help them find their way through whatever it is that they're finding their way through. So yeah, so having said that, we certainly hope that all of you guys that are listening find your way through to our next podcast. Heath, don't know if you want to let people again know how they can reach us.
I would love to let people know how they can reach us. But first, I would also just say that, that we hope by, having shared our funny memories of youth, that, it helps you reflect on your time and your funny memories that you might have with your family members and or your siblings. And it was just so fun to be able to do something a little bit more lighthearted today. So again, thanks so much for our listening community. Remember that you can find us at Finding Our Way Through on all of the major podcast platforms. It's Spotify, it's Apple, it's YouTube. Please like us. Please follow us. And, please, again, tell all your friends about us. And with that, Hope, do you have anything you want to say, or should I sign off for us?
Go ahead and sign off, Ed.
Okay, so until next week, remember, you've got this.
You've got this.
You got this.